It's a little bit of a different camping adventure this week, at least for tonight, because it's just Mabel and I. Emily has an appointment in the city early tomorrow morning, so she's staying in the city tonight so she can go to her appointment first thing in the morning, and then I'm going to go into the city in the afternoon and pick her up. So for tonight, it's just Mabel and I. Just got the propane fire pit going tonight, and if I turn on the headlamp, you can see Mabel over there. Just making some dinner and having a beer, and then gonna relax a little bit. So, pretty lazy night. Got in, about 10 after 8 or so. Pulled in here. I'm at Mount Kidd Campground out in Kananaskis, by the way. And got in, got the trailer unhooked and things. And by that time, it was getting on here. By the time I got it all done myself, it was almost 9 o'clock. So I figured, you know what? That's just too late to mess around with a real campfire or anything like that. So I'm doing it quick, easy, and simple tonight. We'll probably head to bed fairly early, but yeah, enjoy. So Mabel and I are getting ready to turn in for the night, and I started wondering about when was the last time I've camped by myself. And amazingly enough, and this is purely by coincidence, it happens to be August of 2013 in that trip to BC that I just posted the video of last week. So, like I said, that wasn't planned. That was purely coincidence, but that would have been the last time I've camped by myself. So, Mabel and I are going to head in here and pack it up for the night, and I'll show you around a bit more in the morning. Oh, well, good morning to you. As I promised, I would show you around a bit here once we got into the daylight, and that's what I'm going to do. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning. My thermometer in the trailer says it's about 9 degrees. No, that was in the inside the trailer temperature. It was only 3 degrees out here. So we're just above freezing. It's September. It's the mountains. It's to be expected. Let's take a walk around camp here while it's quiet and show you the sights. Pretty quiet out here. Last night when Mabel and I walked around before bed, I think I only counted about 4 or 5 units in this loop. This loop has 32 sites. This is F15 here. F loop is a no services loop, so there's no hookups here, which is probably part of the reason why it's quieter. Mount Kidd, being billed as an RV park, tends to attract bigger units that often like to be hooked up to power, water, and even sewer in some loops. This was a site I had originally considered, but I eventually decided against it because it's kind of close to the main road here that leads further into F Loop. And as we come out onto that main road, you can see there in the distance, and I'm not lying, we actually are in the mountains. And there's a look at Mount Kidd, for which the campground is named. And some more mountains down the way there. Further down Highway 40 here in Kananaskis. Now, I don't really know the history of this, let's call it an abandoned road. I think it may have been an early alignment of Highway 40. It sort of makes sense because you've got your utility poles here and this power line that runs through here. So it kind of makes sense they would have run the utilities along the main road, or it could just be an access road that was here for maintaining the power lines. But that doesn't make quite as much sense to me, because there really isn't much reason to pave a road that you're only using once in a while checking the power poles. But like I said, I don't know. If you look on the map of this area, it sort of makes sense as a previous alignment, and that they moved Highway 40 just a little bit off to my left here as they widened it and straightened it and opened up this area for more tourism versus logging and coal mining, which is what it was originally. Regardless of its history, it is one of my favorite little spots in Kananaskis, and I'm heading down here and I'll show you why. Right here, this is why. You get to this bend in the old road and the trees open up and it becomes a pure cathedral of nature. You've got the Kananaskis River in the foreground. You've got mountains coming around you onto three sides. What a spot. And it's a great spot. You can access it either from the campground or from kind of Wedge Pond Highway 40 this direction. But there's another reason besides the natural beauty that brought me here, and that is because this is the site where I hid my very first geocache in 2005. Now, it hasn't been found for a long time, so I want to see if it's still here or if it's just not being found because everyone around here has found it already. And right there at the base of that tree, I don't know if you'll see it on camera, there's a little bit of dark green showing. And that is indeed there it is, I think, my ammo can. Yeah, there she be. Now, this is not the original cache container that I hid here 18 years ago. When I first hid it, it was just a coffee can wrapped in a plastic bag. And that was very much a style of geocache hide that was very common at that time. Just a coffee can wrapped in a trash bag. And that style faded away as the game evolved. I haven't found one of those in a long time. And the classic ammo can is now the way to go. Well, it's always been the way to go, but it's still the best cache container out there, and I'll show you why. I mean, check that sucker out. Other than some peeling of my camo paint job, thanks to Richard Hansen for his posts that he did online back in the day showing people how he camo painted these ammo cans, it's still in great shape. Let's open her up. My picture of Nona is still in there. This was originally on the lid of the coffee can. It's called Nona the Kananaskis camping cat because we would come camping here with her quite often, so we hid this in her honor. She was still alive at the time. She passed in 2010, I believe. But yeah, this has been out here in the woods for 18 years. And I do believe this is still the original logbook. I'm going to see here. Oops, dropped it. It's hard to do this with one hand holding a camera and a dog leashed to the other hand. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the original log. See if we can get to the first page here. And there's the first entry from October 2nd of 2005. Viejo Perdido, or as we just call him, VP. I hadn't met him at the time, but I would meet him a few years later on some hikes up by Edmonton and CB Mocha. And check this out, kids. Look how people actually used to write comments in the logbook instead of just frantically signing their name and moving on to the next cache. It was a very different game at that time. So that's good. It's still there. 18 years on. It's hanging in there. Hopefully it's there for another 18. Hopefully I'm here for another 18. So, you know, my main purpose of a walk this morning was to give Mabel a chance to do her thing, which she still hasn't done. Do a little cache maintenance, but it was really to take you along and show you the area and kind of set the stage for the weekend, and we'll see how it goes from here. I have no plans today other than to head into Calgary later this afternoon to pick up Emily. So let's go back to camp and make some breakfast. So now we've worked our way over to the full service loops. These are on the north side of the store and camper center. You can tell this is the high rent district, as I like to call it. The roads through the loops are paved. The sites through here tend to be quite a bit bigger and more open, making them a better choice for larger rigs. So it was funny, in one of the Facebook groups called Ask Calgary, there was a recent thread from somebody who was looking to move from Toronto to Calgary and was asking people who had made a similar move to comment on their thoughts. And somebody was talking about how Calgary's a really great city to live and how great it is that you have the mountains just an hour or so away. And somebody commented and said, the mountains are great the first few times you see them, and then after that they're just kind of meh. And I just thought to myself, really? I mean, I've lived in Alberta for 50 years, and while I certainly won't say I grew up in the mountains or spent a lot of time in the mountains as a kid, even all these decades later, I never see it and say meh. And I'm not one to judge people, but if you can look at the beauty that surrounds you out here in a place like this and be bored by it, or say eh, then you're just not living life right. The campsite is so sheltered in the trees. It was really cool there. Now that I get out here into the open and into the sun, I'm hopelessly overdressed, so I'm going to shed a layer. Although, looking at those clouds coming in over Mount Kidd, I may wish I had brought my rain jacket instead of this fleece. So a little change of plans. This is where I am, or was. Went through the park, across the creek and down the trail here, the Bill Milne Trail. I was just going to kind of follow it along and then turn around and come back, but I think I'm going to take this cut through here to Evan Thomas, follow this cross-country ski loop, and then come back around here through Wedge Connector and back. So, change of plans. Bridge out 2 kilometers ahead. Okay. Normally that would discourage me, but seeing how little water there was in the Evan Thomas Creek where I crossed back off camera, I'm not too worried about how much water there will be 2 kilometers upstream. So we're gonna go for it. I don't have a ton of battery life left in the camera, so I'm not filming a lot of the hike, but wow, this was amazing. I had to stop and show you this. Another great vista here. Zoom in, let you see some of the mountains. That's the fortress, just coming to the center of the screen now. Wow. And as I suspected, my concerns about any water level in the Evan Thomas Creek don't appear to be an issue here. You can sure see the damage that was caused by the floods of 2013. But if there's any water running in here right now, it's got to be way over in the channel there, because there's none here right now. Okay, so I think I have reached my junction point where I'm going to turn off of this trail and get onto that other one that was shown on the map as a cross-country ski trail. Trail is not maintained beyond this point, which is good. I don't think I'm going that way. I'm heading this way. And as you can see, we've left the provincial park. Now we're coming back into it. And this is the trail I intend to follow back towards Wedge Pond and then the campground. No horses. So that to me indicates this is probably a cross-country ski trail in the winter. So let's see where it leads. So after leaving the campground, so far, I saw 2 people in the distance walking dogs, 2 people on bicycles, and if I check my trip computer, we have done 4.24 kilometers in about an hour and 12 minutes. And so going that long and seeing almost no people, kind of a nice solitary walk in the woods. Nice solitary walk in the woods. So that looks like the old trail down to the creek through there. Looks like they cut this trail probably after those floods of 2013. I do hear some water running, so it's not going to be a completely dry crossing, but we'll see what it looks like when we get there. Oh, this is a nice spot. Some water running. Cool little pool here. And a bridge. Wow, this must be a nice oasis in the summer. That's beautiful. So yeah, coming down to the creek here, looks like a pretty basic crossing. That looks like the remnants of the old bridge there. Clouding up a bit, but I don't think the rain is imminent quite yet. Famous last words. But yeah, nice spot. I don't think I've ever been here before. Looks like some ambitious hikers have made a makeshift bridge across the creek. I'm gonna let Mabel get a drink here. I suspect she'll just take the shortcut through the water, but I intend, oops, I got her leash caught on my backpack. I intend to try and stay dry if at all possible here. That was pretty easy. The new boots are supposed to be waterproof. I don't need to test them quite yet. So there's the old bridge. And as you can see, that was a fairly substantial bridge. It wasn't a little wooden thing. Like, that's iron trusses. I don't know if they're actually trusses. They're probably not. Somebody who does architecture can correct me, but I mean, that was a solid bridge. And look at it now. A good reminder of no matter what, Mother Nature will always find a way to win. And there we are up ahead, the paved pathway that runs from Mount Kidd to Wedge Pond, or vice versa, depending on which way you're going. I believe we're going to be turning right up here and working our way back to the campground. So for those keeping score at home, we're in 1 hour, 55 minutes into our hike, and we have covered 6.8 kilometers so far. 1.8 to go. Back on some pavement. Nice bench here. Gonna take advantage of it and have a sit down for the first time on this hike. And I realized Mabel's had a couple chances to drink out of creeks to hydrate herself. I haven't actually stopped to take the water out of my pack, so that's what I'm gonna do now. Kind of get off my feet for a couple minutes and just relax. Brief stop, but long enough. Almost back to where we crossed the highway, and then it shouldn't be too far to get to the campground. Looks clear. Just about back at camp, so I'll wrap this portion of the video up here. By the time I get back to camp, we're going to be just a shade under 9 kilometers in total distance, and about probably 2.5 hours of total travel time. So good walk. And it's funny, Mabel's doing much better today with the flatter ground, the cooler temperature, than she did a couple weeks back when we were on the south end of Jumping Pound, where we did less than half this distance, but it was very hot and with a fair bit of elevation gain, and she was pretty beat. Today she's doing really well. She's still pulling hard on the leash because I'm not walking fast enough for her, so that's good. It's always good to read your dog and know their limits. All the trappings of our meal prep here. It's going to be a steak fajita night. So mixed up the marinade and everything at home. So it's been marinating for, well, a good 48 hours now, which is great. That'll give it lots of time to have absorbed and take a fairly cheap cut of steak and hopefully make it tender. In the interest of expediency and convenience, I'm not going to do this over an open fire. I'm going to use the barbecue. I saved some of the bacon grease from this morning that I'll use to kind of saute the peppers in. And some onions too. I forgot about the onion. And because I finally got down to my last of these disposable propane tanks that I'm burning off on the camp stove, there's a new addition. Yes, a new 30-pound propane cylinder that will become the third cylinder. So 2 on the trailer, the third one to run the portable fire pit, and the barbecue grill. So happy to almost be done with all these disposable ones. So the steak fajita recipe came from an old Canadian TV show that was called License to Grill. And I've made this recipe a few times over the years and always liked it a lot. So if I remember, I'll put a link in the description to the recipe where I found it. The original website I think is long gone, but there was a blog that republished a bunch of the recipes, so check it out. That's a lot of pepper, but somehow we'll manage. Ooh boy, I wish you could smell that marinade. There's a couple jalapenos in there and some cumin and a few other things, so yeah, that's gonna be great. Okay, we let that grill here till it comes up to a nice medium rare. Not the easiest cutting with just a little tiny steak knife, but Emily's making it work. So there we go. Tortillas done up on the grill. Monterey Jack cheese, the peppers and onions, a little sour cream. It's like, oh yeah, this should be great. So, just cleaning up from dinner here. Emily's taking Mabel for a walk. And my goal is to get the fire going. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this on the camera, but this is like the loudest campfire I think I've ever made. Like, it sounds like a jet engine. It's the second morning out here, and it's another chilly one. Thermometer said 2 degrees.
In my breath.
2 degrees when we got up. So, get breakfast going. Got the propane fire pit going there to take the chill off the campsite this morning, and have no idea what's on the agenda for today, but we'll figure that out later.
So after dinner, we thought it'd be fun to play a little rousing game of frog ball. Just as it seems, well, there's 2 paddles. We each get a paddle, throw the ball back and forth, and catch it on the Velcro. Shout out to my mom who gave this fun game to us last year, and we actually haven't played it yet, so now's the time.
I was cheating. I used 2 hands.
It's not sticky.
I don't know why it's defective now.
Maybe you do have to catch it.
You can barely see me there in the dying of the fire. But probably the last campfire of the year. We're most likely going to wrap up our camping season this weekend. We're not 100% sure on that, but that's probably the case, which means that this is the last campfire of the 2023 season for us. We're just kind of slowly letting it burn down as we get ready to head to bed. It's nice and warm sitting by the fire, but boy, you take 3 steps away and it gets real cold real fast. I think last night got down to about 3 degrees Celsius, so just above freezing point. So winter is definitely in the air. Pretty low-key day today. Mabel and I were still really tired from our hike the other day and just never really got going, really. So went for a little drive, didn't do a whole lot, so that's okay. There's nothing wrong with relaxing.